Sorry, we're moving on. Commanders at Lions. Detroit almost 10-point favorites in this one off their bye. This one is Saturday night on Fox, 7:30. Huge spread bodes well for Detroit. Look at this. If you're an 8-point favorite, 15-0. 10-5 against the spread for all you gamblers out there. Nick, you go first. The board is yours, as I like to say. Who is this a must-win for? You know who. Who? I don't know who.
I don't even say it, and you know who. That's it. Oh. We're in the. All of a sudden, you are throwing out entirely everything Sam Darnold did this year, based on one bad playoff game. Say you went pumpkin mode.
Yeah.
I watched Breakfast Bowl this morning, and they did a topic that you would have hated, but it's coming, which is, okay, switch quarterbacks. Which team's better, which team's worse? Like, with the argument being Jaden already has proven he's a better quarterback than Jared Goff.
When I said it with Caleb, I got roasted.
What? Huh? When you, the only way the Lions lose this game is if somehow Goff goes 5-pick game the way he did. They ended up winning that game, but like we saw earlier in the year. They have such a massive edge, not only from home field, but from offensive personnel against the Commanders' defense, that it would take a Goff hat trick of turnovers. So because the only way they lose is if Goff melts down, it's a must-win. So it's Jared Goff.
Dan Campbell.
Nice.
Here's the reason why. We all love
explanation.
We all love Dan Campbell, right? He's this great coach. It turned this moribund franchise around in a snap of a finger. But here's what do we love about Dan Campbell? What makes him unique? What makes him good? He's different from everybody else. Here's the things that are his strengths. No rest. We don't sit out week 18 like the Chiefs and these other
week
teams.
Week 18, they
right?
had to play.
No rest.
The 1 seed.
Go
that would have been
for
a ridiculous
Go
game to
for
sit
it
out.
all the time, practically, on 4th down. All right? Trick plays.
I like that, too.
We run up the score. We embarrass opponents. You beat us last year. Oh, we're not just going to beat you. We're going to embarrass you. But guess what? When that is what you do, when that is how you live, when that is what you rest your hat on, you better win. You better win a divisional round playoff game that you're favored to win. Oh, if you lose, the icing will be off the cake. For Dan Campbell. I just made that one up.
This is simple. Aaron Glenn, let's get it done.
Aaron Glenn.
You got to win, man. You got to win. Nobody has been able to solve this riddle of Jaden Daniels. No one all season long. He's one of the best closers in the game. He's coming into your house. The reason why the bye was so important is because of the guys on your side of the ball. I need to get healthy. My guys need rest so we can get after this very brilliant dual threat quarterback. Well, you got all the rest. You got the number 1 seed. You got your fans behind you. You're at home. You got a young guy that's coming in at quarterback that has some faint fans that are saying they're Lion supporters nervous.
Oh, wow, you're playing with fire there.
Aaron Glenn, shut this offense down.
Wow.
The one thing we know that they can do, they can score, but only if you let them.
Okay. For the first time.
Okay, let's talk about this. I got a few answers to this, and I'm going to talk about Dan Campbell, not so much because I really think it's a must-win for him, but just because, for the sake of having an interesting conversation, treating it as if like I was forced to ask this, answer this question, because, I always minimize and downplay any of these like must-win or, type situations. But I just think it's kind of just fun to have this conversation in this light and kind of use this as a jumping point. But I have a couple different answers also with regards to Jared Goff and totally disagreeing with what Nick Wright has to say. So I guess I'll start there first. It'll make Detroit Lions fans happier. This is not a must-win. In the grand scheme of things, this isn't a must-win for anyone involved, actually, with the Detroit Lions, because this team without a shadow of a doubt, is just the definition of a family. This team embodies that, and all teams try to preach family, 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 and not all. A lot of it is just kind of lip service. It's different. And I was watching this interview just today before I made this video about like an hour ago, on I think it was Johnny Manziel's podcast, I think, and I just saw like a clip of it. I didn't watch the whole thing, and they were interviewing I forget who it was, I'm sorry, but it was an ex-Eagle player, and he was talking about family, and he goes, when Carson Wentz went down, like, Johnny Manziel was like, oh, that must have been so devastating. You guys were rolling, you were having such a great season. There had to have been a moment when you guys were like, oh my God. And he goes like, no, he's like, we were just essentially so connected. We were such a family. All the other teams preach being family. And he goes, and it's not always real. He's like, it was real with this one. And there was such an insane belief in Nick Foles. Everyone just loves that guy. And one that kind of paralleled to what the problem has been with Carson Wentz all these years is that people don't love Carson Wentz, and so he gets scapegoated and they push him out. But that's a different story.
Obviously, being a huge part of that team, you have your starting quarterback go down. Yeah, there's got to feel a point in there where you like have such a great season, you see him go down, and you're like, damn.
The crazy part about that, bro, that team was so confident, we didn't blink. And the type of dude that Foles is, bro, everybody loves Foles. Like, you're gonna buy in. Every team preaches family. It's not the case. That's not real. That Eagles team legit was family. Like, when we would step out and we would go out in the city, bro, we 15, 20 deep. Offense, defense, special teams. We had such a unique bond. That was the most together team I've ever been a part of.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. I found the clip after I just spliced this in, so it might be a little choppy because I don't know how to insert this in the best way possible. So, but that's exactly what I was talking about. And that to me is, as soon as I saw that clip, I'm like, yep, that's a Detroit Lions right there. That is the definition of who the Detroit Lions are. So there you go. And Jared Goff very much has that Jared Goff is obviously better, but he has that love and that belief behind him. Combine that with this team, no one's blaming anyone. This is like everyone's always looking for blames. When you look at these other teams, look at the Philadelphia Eagles. Who are we pointing fingers at? A.J. Brown, Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts. You're looking at the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson can't get it done. Lamar. Harbaugh, get him out of here. Josh Allen. He's not good enough. It's always pointing fingers. In the last 2 years, in the last 3 years, I don't see anyone pointing fingers for anything with the Detroit Lions. No one. This team is such a family that if you saw them in real life and they were an actual family, you'd be like, man, like a South Park episode where you're like, you guys are a bunch of weirdos. You're a bunch of weirdos. Like, what is wrong with you guys? Why do you guys like each other so much? Like, it would be like weird. You'd be like, there's something wrong with y'all. I don't know what this is. Like, that's what this team has. This team is heavily connected. Heavily. And it's just so clear as day, and it's been clear as day. This is a team that when they go out, and it's so funny because I made this comparison like a couple months ago, I think, where I was like, when this team goes out, it's like they roll out, like they are it. It's all of them. And that clip that I saw, he pretty much said like, yo, when we all went out, it was like 20 of us deep, and like that is who the Lions are. So if there's ever a must win in terms of like who, no one on the Lions at the end of the day, because they are just, we ride together, we die together, bad boys for life. Like, it really is just all or nothing. It's all of us or none of us. All of us or none of us. They embody that to the core. And so, if they lost, it would be devastating. Even if Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions, of course you'd have people blaming Jared Goff. Of course you'd have the media and this or that. But the Lions wouldn't. The Lions wouldn't. And everyone has that belief. No one has the feeling, we would be even better if Jared Goff was our quarterback. We would be even better if we had Andy Reid instead of Dan Campbell. We'd be even better if we had Spags as our defensive coordinator. We'd be even better if instead of Amon-Ra St. Brown, we had Jamar Chase. No one talks like that. Nobody talks like that. None. And you know what's also something that I realized that I also, learned over these last few months too? Like the fans have nothing but unconditional, just diehard support behind this team of every single player, every single coach, every single person that's involved in that franchise. So again, when you say who is the must win for, well, who is the must win for? According to who? Again, like the media, for the fans, for the franchise itself, for upper management, the suits and ties, like for who? According to who? To you? To Nick Wright? To Greg? So that's what's all, it's like, who? Who is the who? Or who is the for? So that's just, really what it feels like to me. And that is my true bona fide opinion. But if that was an unacceptable opinion, because like, no, you got to answer. Just for fun, if I had to pick anyone, it would be Dan Campbell. Mainly because when you have a team this great, this special, you came up short last year, and then you have this year, and you come up short again. It just falls on the coach. I just don't think you're going to blame these players. You're not going to blame any of the players at this point. You're not going to blame Ben Johnson, right? Like, you're just not. At most, you would be able to say, the injuries, they caught up to us or whatever. Like, that could be kind of, where you can kind of put it on. But I think it would ultimately have to fall on Dan Campbell. The thing that saves Dan Campbell, because one of my comparisons would be like Nick Sirianni, where in 22 he took them to the Super Bowl and it's like, hooray, hooray, hooray. And then in 23, obviously they lost and it was like, oh, okay, not good enough. We're going to give you another chance. And then if 24 they come up short, like I'm pretty confident they'll get him fired. But he's not seen for the rise of the Philadelphia Eagles. First off, the Philadelphia Eagles didn't need to be rebuilt from the ground up like the Detroit Lions. Like, they had just won a Super Bowl when they hired Nick Sirianni like 3 or 4 years prior to that. And this team is seen as being built by the players and the GM and ownership, less so than like a culture that Sirianni integrated into that team. Whereas Dan Campbell feels like his fingerprints. Yes, this team was obviously built by some very, very bright people, but it just like the culture, the energy, the whole family, the whole rant that I just went on is built by Dan Campbell. And so that kind of gives you kind of like this little bit of a protective bubble over any of that type of criticism. But again, at the same time, when you're this great, when you're this dominant of a team, it's like, right, like you got to win. And if you don't, there has to be answers. And so losing to a Jaden Daniels and the Commanders, it's like at home, when this is supposed to be your year, you're the number 1 seed, you're forced to find blame somewhere. And even though it wouldn't necessarily be fair to be like, Dan Campbell, you would be like, because he got blamed last year when you think about it. A lot of people called him out for kind of going for it, not kicking field goals, etc. And if there was a similar situation, you would probably imagine that he would get the brunt of the heat. And, I think that would probably be fair. Again, it would have to unpack in a certain way. Like if the Commanders just won this game, and let's say it's actually a lot more boring of a game than anyone expects. It's 21-10 or something, or 21-14. Outside of Dan Campbell going for it on their own 30, and they don't get it, and now Jaden Daniels is able to walk in for a touchdown 2 plays later, right? Outside of anything like that, or something, if something like that very specific happens, then I think Dan Campbell would be absolutely ripped to pieces. And they lose, of course. He would be ripped to pieces. In fact, even if they win, he would still get ripped to pieces, because they'll say, is Dan Campbell going to cost the Lions a Super Bowl? You can't do that against the Chiefs. Can't do that against the Eagles. That would be the conversation. But especially if they lost, then I think it would almost be a dam breaking. But if it's like a more basic game where none of something like that doesn't happen, they go for 4th down, but they convert and they put up their points and the Commanders put up their points. But at the end of the day, hey, Commanders are just able to pull off this win in like a, nothing too crazy of a way. It's just like people will be looking for answers of who to blame. And again, Dan Campbell could be kind of insulated a little bit, but ultimately it would still fall on him, just maybe not as aggressive outside of him, again, just being burned by going for it on 4th down. But at the end of the day, you know, I think the Lions are obviously in a great place from even just like a reputation. Because anytime you ask a question, who is it a must win for? Like, it's because like there's a reputation on the line of some sort. Like someone is already running out of get out of jail free cards, or someone really needs to prove that they can play in the playoffs, or, you know, whatever it is. Like Lamar Jackson needs to prove that he can beat Patrick Mahomes, or, you know, like whatever the specific scenario is. And it just seems like because the Detroit Lions, what makes them special is the team itself. It just, there's no focal point. There's no focal point. If they lose, there won't anyone to be to blame. It will just be the team loss. So it's not a must win for anyone, but you certainly want to win. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Detroit Lions? Who do you think this is a must win for? Anyone on the Lions, Dan Campbell, management, whoever, Ben Johnson. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here. I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.